Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Wilder Ride, where we are getting wilder by the minute. It's a podcast where we are breaking down and celebrating the films of Gene Wilder 1 minute at a time. And our first film we're breaking down is the film Young Frankenstein. And we are breaking this down one backward insert at a time. I'm Alan Sanders.
And I'm Walt Murray.
And joining us from the Indiana Jones Minute to wrap up this week is Pete Mummert. Welcome back.
Thank you. Just getting ready to light my cigarette, I guess.
Oh. Well, naughty Marietta just left, and I don't care what they said about the advertisement. She sure wanted one heck of a tip at the end. So I thought with Frankenstein's creature, she already had gotten one heck of a tip, but, you know, I digress. So let's get into this minute here, what's going on. We continue with Elizabeth finishing up her operatic ecstasy at being in the arms of somebody who finally has brought meaning to her life. Sweet mystery of life. So glad I found you. We're going to get a very close-up look as well, Walt, at the upside-down menorah, and you're going to see that I was right about it.
This should be good.
So we start the movie minute with her singing and with the crowd and a mob making its way still in the woods trying to hunt down the monster. And we're going to end this minute with Elizabeth saying, "Come over here, you hot monster." Let's finish this up. Pete, we're now past the uncomfortable moment. We're finishing it up. She's at least singing to her. Whoop.
Yeah.
Wow, right there.
You can almost hear it.
It's almost like it's there. She is singing to the heavens and to herself and to the monster and everything, that she is really super happy about this big guy that she found. But we immediately cut from that to a walk through the woods of Inspector Kemp with some of the townsfolk. And I want to use this moment to start off with actually looking at what's happening here, because they are all still very cautiously looking through the woods, including the one guy that was told, "Don't block Inspector Kemp from the camera," so he's purposely hunched completely over.
Right. Yeah, the guy carrying the gun.
The guy carrying the gun. Uh-huh. And the guy immediately behind him, the thing you called a rake, and it does look like it's got tines on it, but to me it also looks like some kind of an upside-down menorah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a crazy looking thing, and it really does not look like I thought it did. I thought it had, rake prongs, whatever you call those.
It does have tines.
Yeah,
but it's also got these weird semicircle hoops.
Yeah, it's almost like a symbol of some kind, like they took it out of a church.
Like I said, I can't help but see the menorah to an extent. It'd be a 5-candle menorah in this case, but
yeah, it's very.
Pete, what about you? You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it absolutely, I think, looks like a menorah.
I could understand Mel Brooks fitting something like that in, obviously. He talked about how growing up watching a lot of plays in the Yiddish theater, that they would always end Act 2 with somebody screaming to the heavens, "Dear God, what have I done?" And that's where he has Gene Wilder add that exact line about when Frankenstein's creature escapes. He looks up to the heavens and yells, "Dear God, what have I done?" So that was a throwback to his Jewish background and Jewish upbringing and Jewish theater. So I wouldn't doubt if there was just a little bit of this, just as a sort of an Easter egg for folks to just say, "Hey, what's with the upside down menorah?"
Yeah, because
in this case, the way he's holding it, it looks kind of right side up. So
yeah.
Although if you've ever seen if you've been to the Roman Forum, there's the famous Arch of Titus, and there's a scene on the side of it that looks almost exactly like this scene. Like there's a guy carrying a menorah and guys carrying standards, and it looks like guys carrying axes and basically torches. Like it's funny because it looks almost exactly like this shot.
Oh wow, the first mob scene.
Funny.
Yeah.
When you say it was in where does it, like, what does it represent in terms of era, or was it just like a coming back from the spoils of war with Caesar, or what?
Yeah, it was after Titus. It's called the Arch of Titus, and it was commemorating basically the sack of Jerusalem and them coming back and conquering Jerusalem and then bringing back the spoils of the war.
Huh. I wouldn't be surprised again if there isn't some of the same illusions. Then again, we've seen already that these guys, for two guys writing what some people might dismiss as just kind of a silly comedy, which I don't think it is, there is a lot of thought to many of the illusions here, and this is an example of where they showed reverence to not only the Frankenstein story, but to some of history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do. And you do realize that, well, and we've talked about this multiple times before, that for a comedy, they really went overboard in detail and making sure that they're covering their bases on everything except one thing in this scene. And I think you had something you wanted to talk about on that.
Yeah, let's talk about this minute for a second. Inspector Kemp suddenly has a mechanical left arm.
Now wait a minute. But I thought if you look at the dart scene, doesn't he have a mechanical right arm?
Well, in every other scene, he's got a mechanical right arm.
So what happened?
Okay, so let's ask this first question, and I don't know if Pete has an idea, because I know I'd rather let the guest have the glory. I'd rather him share the spoils of victory. Do you have any idea when he had his right arm detached and switched over with his left?
No, I didn't even know. I didn't even catch this until you mentioned it.
All right, Walt, what about you? I mean, because you obviously noticed after we chatted a little bit about it. You knew that note because we talked about it even before when we first got here.
Yeah, I had noticed it when I was preparing for this minute, but I'm not really sure what caught my eye about it. But I all of a sudden realized it was different. I think what happened was they had him written into this scene. They had him turning around and shushing the crowd, but because the scene in the past 2 or 3 minutes or 4 minutes has been moving from right to left across the scene, they couldn't use his other arm as effectively, so they had to switch him to use his left arm to shush the crowd.
Oh, you think because they needed to have the downstage, the closer to the camera arm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so your answer should be really good.
So let's do
it
this.
Better be good.
Let's play for a minute. What eye is put out?
Monocle.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. They have also
what
switched
side was his badge
switched
on?
the eye. Oh, interesting.
Wow.
They realized that they shot this. I'm 100% positive about this. I didn't read this anywhere.
You're right about it.
They shot the scene walking left to right across the camera. Yep. And I thought you were going to pick up on it when you said that the last time we saw him, they were going right to left. They shot this going the wrong direction, and for continuity's sake, to make it look like they were still progressing in the same direction by going right to left, they had to reverse the film. Everything is reversed in this shot. The guy that's right-handed holding the gun has the gun as if he shoots left-handed. Yep. Everything is reversed in this shot.
Yep, you're right, including the monocle and patch, the badge, the whole 9 yards.
So technically, Kenneth Mars was exactly doing what he was supposed to do. It was his right arm. He didn't forget which arm he created in homage to Dr. Strangelove.
No.
But because of a shooting problem, this is actually a Mel Brooks problem. As the director, you're supposed to keep track of this. They reversed where the camera was on the shot, on the scene, and it didn't match with the previous time crossing the screen, and they had no choice but to reverse the film.
Yeah, that's a good catch. I didn't see that at all. And honestly, if they had done it, if they had left it the way they shot it, it would have been awkward because of the way they ended up laying the film out.
Now, this was not an unknown of technique when you're using film. The first time I heard about this was a movie that I think Jimmy Stewart was in, where he was a he was a baseball player. And I know he was playing a left-handed baseball player, but Jimmy Stewart was right-handed. I think it was Jimmy Stewart. And he couldn't bat left-handed for the movie. He could only bat right-handed. And they were like, well, we're not going to you just can't teach somebody it would just look weird. You have to have the form.
Right.
And they realized if they put people's numbers backwards on their uniform, and they filmed him hitting and running to third base instead of first base, they could reverse the film in the editing, and all the numbers would look right, and he would look like he's running to first base.
Was that in the movie about Lou Gehrig?
Maybe that was in. I just can't remember. I remember the story, and I don't remember I thought it was Jimmy Stewart playing in it, but I'm not 100% positive. The biggest thing I remember is, as a kid, I saw that as one of those sort of fun facts on Saturday morning TV. It was one of those did you know spinning kind of things. I don't know. And it was like that they had to film this scene Like they had to put everything in reverse. The logos had to be printed backwards, the numbers printed backwards, so he could bat right-handed and make it look like he was batting left-handed when they put it together.
I'll have to go watch some of that. That's interesting.
See, I'm full of useless shit.
And, Boy, you got that right.
And if I'm wrong on that one, we'll have to find out. But there is a baseball movie.
Well, I'm sure one of our listeners
100%
will correct us on Facebook.
Someone is sure to correct us.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what obviously is going on here in this minute, that they realize in editing, it would have been a little too jarring. The last time we see everybody creeping across the screen, they're all going right to left. And all of a sudden, if we shot them going left to right, you'd be like, wait a minute, where are they going with the last time? Right. And just in terms of in your mind. And it's one of those subtle things as a filmmaker. The audience may not realize it, but if you do that, if you screw up the direction, it can play with you. Like, wait a minute, they were going this way the last time we saw them. So to be consistent, and since it's such a short moment, I guess they decided that, the lesser error is to still show them going in the correct direction. And most people don't catch those details.
There's no way, unless you're going minute by minute through the movie, that you're going to catch that.
And who would ever think of doing a movie 1 minute
Nobody
at a
would
time?
ever do anything that crazy.
Well, the thing I kept thinking about was in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Tote was originally going to have a mechanical arm. And I'm wondering if the reason they ended up not going forward with that was because between Dr. Strangelove and this, it was just there were too many, things that had already been done too many times.
It's an interesting thought.
Yeah. Well, I know with The Walking Dead in the original comic books that Rick loses his arm, and one of the reasons that they didn't want him to lose it on the show is because it was going to be too limiting for the character.
Not only that, expensive to constantly keep erasing the hand for all the scenes.
Some CGI issues there. So, and it can be, if you end up with a second movie or whatever, it definitely becomes a limiting thing.
Well, I think the whole thing with Tote and the mechanical arm, wasn't it supposed to be a mechanical arm that had some sort of a machine gun or something?
Yeah, it had a machine gun attached to it, yeah.
It almost sounds like you're playing Doom 3 or no, Return to Castle Wolfenstein.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which those crafty Germans are always doing some really crazy stuff in their labs. And there's the connection between Young Frankenstein and Indiana Jones, because the Germans are always having a mad scientist lab somewhere. Right. They're always experimenting.
Yes.
Right.
Here is yet another wipe, and I swear again, next time I do a movie like this, I'm going to count them. I have no idea how many wipes we've had, but this one is actually in the shape of a heart. We have a heart coming in as Kenneth Mars, or Inspector Kemp, and his group is still walking now the correct direction, even if they put all their clothes on backwards.
That's right.
Where we now see a heart, and as that heart is revealing 2 cigarettes, those 2 cigarettes are in the mouth of the creature. Now I have a question. How did those cigarettes get lit?
Yeah, I had that question too.
Well, I think this relationship now is good for everybody because he's no longer scared of fire.
Right.
See, what I thought you were going to ask is, doesn't he know that smoking's bad for you? And I was going to point out he's already dead. So,
what does a dead guy need with cigarettes? Yeah. But no, the serious question I have is they're both lit.
Yeah.
She didn't make as if to pull away with a lighter, and even if she did, someone had to put flame right where his mouth is, because those cigarettes are lit in his mouth. Those aren't lit somewhere else. He lit them, or she lit them.
We haven't seen a torch in his lair or anything like that.
I'm not even worried about. Okay, I'm not even worried about that. I'm just worried about the fact that suddenly the sweet mystery of life has a calming effect for him as well. He's okay.
Yeah, maybe he never was really afraid of fire. It's just sort of this whole coming back from the dead business got him kind of tightly wound and needed to unwind a little.
He needed to unwind a bit.
It's been a rough, earlier in the day I was hung in a prison yard. I was dug up by these 2 idiots. I had my brain replaced by somebody else's brain. Next thing I know, I'm lumbering about town. This is a really stressed guy. All he needed was just a little nookie, and he's okay.
Well,
What is it, the line from Ghostbusters?
We've been going about this all wrong. This Mr. Stay Puft is okay. He's a sailor. He's in New York. We get this guy laid, we won't have any trouble.
We get this guy laid, we're good.
Well, I was going to say, a philosopher has said, all you need is love.
All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need.
All All you need is love.
Love is all you need.
Well, he does do the typical. Now, this is again. This was where just sort of those strains of the 70s, the whole era of the 70s film, the culture of the 70s, the fact that after making Whoopi, that they're going to have a nice, relaxing smoke in bed. He does the romantic, I'll light them both for us, baby. Don't worry about it. I'll do them. And then I'll hand you your
I'm here
cigarette.
for you.
And they both look like they could not be happier and content.
I was wondering what they were smoking.
Not since before kids, I think, have I ever looked like this.
Yeah, kids took care of that.
Yes, because it's either, if you're going to be post, coital activity, it's quick, put the clothes on, the kids are coming. Or, did you lock the door? Or, quick, we had 6 minutes, we got to hurry up and get back to what we're supposed to be doing. There's none of this, kick back, relax, light a cigarette, enjoy the rest of the night together. There is none of that.
Doesn't happen.
And his fear of fire is so gone that he just flings his lit cigarette into the nettles.
Does he do that at the end here?
Yeah, he flicks it away. Like it's completely lit, and he's smoked, like taking like one drag of it.
I mean, we've got this bed of dry leaves and maybe straw, or at least pine straw. Well, I don't know if it's pine straw. It's just some kind of forest bedding, but dried, comfortable bedding. And he just
throws it to the other end of the room.
I don't give a damn what Smokey says.
Only you can prevent forest fires? Well, who cares?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got some lines here in between him flicking that cigarette, and it's not many. It's about the only lines that we have here. And I love Madeline Kahn and her character of Elizabeth, because we know he hasn't been able to say a word yet, right? Mm-hmm. He just grunts. I didn't realize she is actually Han Solo to Chewbacca. Because he grunts, and somehow she understands entirely what he's saying.
Yeah.
Penny for your thoughts. You're incorrigible, aren't you? You little zipper neck.
The only thing he said is putting on the Ritz.
But she didn't see that. In this scene here, all he does is grunt or make a noise. And yet, when he does that, it's like Chewie going, what are you trying to take these apart for? I told you we got to leave.
Right.
Han understands fully what the grunts and the groans mean. It's almost like some kind of a telepathic thing underneath the growls and grunts. Or I am Groot. I don't know. But she does say, penny for your thoughts. And he gives that kind of a monstrous, but more like, not a shout, but and she's like, oh, you're incorrigible. And the way she delivers it, we know exactly what his thoughts are.
Yes.
He's like, that was fun. And now, I'll be honest, the first time I saw this, I thought that they just got done the first time. Mm-hmm. What really makes this funny is after the monster growls it or makes a sound again, she goes, all right then.
All right. 7 has always been my lucky number. Come over here, you hot monster.
7's always been my lucky number.
Yes, leaving nothing to the imagination for us.
Which, okay, I get number 1 could have taken place very quickly. I get that. I'm aware of that. That's a phenomenon. But 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6... they've been here a while. No wonder they need a relaxing smoke and a rollback. And all right, where's their Gatorade and a box of Wheaties?
Yeah, well, he's something.
Yeah.
Well, she's found the man of her dreams. Although she says 7 has always been my lucky number. How would she know?
Right.
Yeah, I'm not thinking she is the most chaste woman.
She's a woman about town.
Yes,
I think that is. You bet your boot she is.
Yeah, but she's
so to our listeners, once again, dialogue in the movie seems to indicate that this is not the first time or the 7th that she is used to hitting the Shangri-La sweet mystery. Oh, well, maybe the first time she's felt sweet mystery of life, that she feels like there's more to it. I like how she cuddles up to him. She puts her arm lovingly around his neck, calls him zipper neck. As she's sort of fondling the zipper.
Anybody has made any reference to the zipper in the movie that I can remember.
I think it's the first time I noticed that there was a zipper. Like, I don't think I'd ever even noticed that.
Yeah, it's actually prominent early on when he's first resurrected, but they never call it out.
Never mentioned.
Right.
What was the discussion? You said that they've never mentioned it, but we had some discussion and we had to drop it because
when we
looked
about
up,
it,
I looked up zipper head instead of zipper neck because I thought that was a similar thing.
Right.
And it turned out zipper head is
a derogatory.
it's about people being run over with tanks. And that's what they would call people with the tank treads mashed in their faces. They'd call them zipper heads. So, but were we talking about that offline, or were we talking about that another time that zipperhead was used? Now the problem with this.
It's also a very racist derogatory term.
Well, the people being run over were Asian.
Yeah, right.
So,
but this is the first time.
But this is the time
anybody has
definitely
actually
acknowledged
in the movie that the zipper is on his neck.
Well, definitely, certainly acknowledging that. We're gonna have to go back. If we're wrong, we're gonna find out from our friends.
Yes, but I think we talked about when we were talking to the guys from BK on the air. We were talking about the flat head and the bolts in the neck. That those were, I know at least the flat head.
The flat head is copyrighted and trademarked,
right? And
with
I
Universal.
Think they had mentioned something about the neck too. Yeah. The bolts.
No, they didn't say anything about the bolts. The flat head, iconic look of Frankenstein or the monster is trademarked by Universal until 2026.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is why everybody else's Frankenstein has to have a different head. They can't have that flat Boris Karloff style makeup.
Right.
Yeah, the coffee table head.
Now, see, Pete, had you been a diligent guest and had listened to all of our minutes ahead of time,
that's right.
You would have been like, "Oh yeah, of course, I remember you guys." No, just kidding. But she does play with it, almost like. You know how somebody may twirl, your lover's hair or play with each other's maybe earlobe? This is a very loving thing. She is not, this isn't some one-night stand kind of activity. This is somebody who's very happy, content, very loving. It's that sort of playful.
She's totally into him.
Yeah, totally into him. And I like that. I like how if we were worried about last minute being something uncomfortable, we at least know on the backside of it that she is willfully here. She's a part of this, and she wanted this because she apparently they've done it 6 more times. So, she is all in to Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, and he seems to be very into her as well.
Yeah, he's got such a smile. He looks like he's found the love of his life.
Yeah, you expect him to start singing.
Well, hopefully he'll learn to sing better than he did the last time we heard him sing. So he's good with his feet, and apparently he's good in the sack. So all he's missing is just the ability to speak.
Yeah.
There's certain things you can give up, I guess.
Maybe that'll come. I don't know. In the script, there is exactly as written all of this. The one change in terms of intention, because when she says penny for your thoughts, the stage direction or the script direction is supposed to be the monster eyes twinkle lasciviously. And I don't think they went that direction. I don't think he's leering to the point of being lascivious. I think he's just looking at her like, really? Again? Seriously? Yeah. And I'm glad it wasn't so harsh on the monster side, that he's more, that they're two equals in this scene, rather than him still being the power player. Because when you think about it, she's actually wanting something again, and she's encouraging the conversation. So she's already figured out, I'm starting to get my power play back. I can slowly take the conversation and the action the way I want it to go.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think if he had leered, if he had been sort of still in charge, that wouldn't have worked. I like the fact that it's showing Elizabeth is not only comfortable with this relationship already, but she's already feeling like she's, if not at least an equal, driving it.
Yeah, and he's no longer creepy. And, he doesn't have misplaced desires, I guess, or, misplaced motives, that they are in an equal relationship. You're right. And a willful relationship.
Yeah. And for some reason, he's still wearing his tuxedo.
Well, why take it off?
When you look good, you look good.
I guess
when he was taking the jacket off, we didn't talk about this, but you could tell it was tough for him to manipulate that jacket. And I'm sure with all the extra padding on, it was tough to get off. And I don't
Yeah.
know if they didn't want to go through the trouble of getting
In terms of
all
all the extra special effects makeup, I don't know that I needed to see his bare back or anything like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it does feel
No,
awkward
It's better with it on.
that he's still fully
Yeah.
clothed, but
we didn't need to see his keep on trucking tattoo on his shoulder.
yeah, we don't need to see the tramp stamp on the back. Yeah, talk about a man about town.
Yeah, what tattoos would Frankenstein have if he had them?
What would he have? Mother.
Yeah, I think just the classic mother.
With a question mark of who is my mother?
But would it be on his arm or would it be on his chest?
Well, I think he would, on his chest, he would probably have like Dracula or some other monster, whoever his monster hero is.
Could he have a brain?
He could have a brain.
Tattooed with an arrow placed here.
Or like a tattoo of a really hulked up scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz.
At the time this movie came out, if they had done something like that, they probably could have put an Incredible Hulk tattoo somewhere.
They could have.
Yeah.
They could.
Yeah.
People usually put heroes on themselves.
Well, and instead of like a Harley Davidson, I'm sure that in Transylvania they don't have those yet. So he could just had whatever hay cart company.
He's got, for those folks who really know bad movies, he's just got Transylvania 65000
Oh gosh.
on one arm.
Oh, talk about a bad movie. Woof.
Transylvania 65000.
Oh, there's one to forget.
All right. Well, we're running out of things with this minute, obviously, when we're down to the tattoos that Frankenstein's monster might have put on himself. But, to an extent, he was in a prison.
Yeah, he was.
He was hanged in the prison yard and put in the prison graveyard. That's where they found the body. So he had done something. And, prisoners and people in the life of crime,
Yeah.
that, Walt. I mean, people in the life of crime sometimes put tats on.
Yes, they do.
That's why I don't have one.
Yeah. I have avoided them all my life as well.
I just haven't figured out what thing, which is, I'm not opposed to them. We're at a point now where it's become less of a statement of who you are, and like where more and more people have them. But I have yet to figure out the one thing I want indelibly etched on my body that I'm not going to be 20 years from now going, oh, damn it, I don't like that anymore.
Right.
Well, I was going to mention we're adding a Patreon piece this week. If anybody will give $1,000, Alan will get the Wilder Ride tattooed on his shoulder.
If anyone will give $2,000, you get to pick what Alan gets on his shoulder.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I'm going to do? I'll pull the Phoebe from Friends.
Yeah.
Do you remember where her tattoo is?
I remember she had one. I can't remember what it was.
It's a dot. And then she says, I got a tattoo of the world on my shoulder. And they look at it, it's a dot. She goes, well, it's the world from a long way off.
Perfect.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. For $2,000, I will get a tattoo that you get to pick, but I get to pick the size.
Right.
And we'll leave it at that.
And for $2,000, you can get a pretty good tattoo.
Yeah, I'm not going to go down that route. I'll take the 2,000 and run. Screw the podcast. I've made my fortune. You can see where my life has taken a wrong turn when $2,000 is my fortune.
Well, hey,
Well,
it is what it is.
I'm just happy that I've got a wife I can come home to and have a scene that looks nothing like this every single night.
Absolutely.
We have kids. We have dogs. We have dogs in our bed.
And we don't smoke in the house.
What are you sniffing? Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to this. Pete, do you have anything, at least for this minute, that minute number 95, as we are wrapping up not only this minute, but this week?
Nope. I think we covered everything. I can't believe I never caught that he had a zipper neck.
See, that's why we do this.
That's exactly right.
Walt, what about you?
No, I think we've covered it.
Yeah, I do too. This was a great transition. We started off where it could have been a horrific scene. It could have gone the way of the other Frankenstein kind of monsters or monster movies. And in this case, it's once again, as we're starting to reach toward, we can sense we're getting to the end of the movie, that things are starting to either resolve themselves or move in a happily ever after direction. Now, there's going to be some more drama. Folks, you definitely want to come back next week. There's going to be some things left that need to happen and get resolved. But before we do that, Pete, you've been with us all week long. I know you came to us late in the movie, but let's wrap up with just your overall thoughts of just Young Frankenstein. I know we started this week with it, but I want to end as well. That having gone through at least these 5 minutes, what do you think about the composition and storytelling of this particular film?
I think it's fantastic. I love how much it is almost like a love letter to the movies of the 30s. You know, obviously Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks loved the source material, and I love how much this sort of lovingly looks back at it. It's nostalgic, but at the same time, they put their own spin on it, and they kind of bring it into making it more of a modern movie with modern sensibilities.
You know, in some ways, to me, this film, and I hate to say it, marks the pinnacle, I think, of the Mel Brooks filmmaking. It's not that he's done bad movies since, and it was a gradual fall off, because the next 2 or 3 films I still think are good movies that he did, but I feel like this is the pinnacle of and it's the last time he and Gene Wilder worked together, but it feels like this was the best he ever did. That there's some great movies, funny movies. I still love High Anxiety as probably my second favorite Mel Brooks movie. Blazing Saddles for me is still my favorite overall, but again, Gene Wilder there in the film to help maybe temper it. Maybe that was the missing piece from Mel Brooks moving forward. You needed that sort of real, genuine, intellectual guy to temper some of that zaniness that Mel Brooks was going. And as Mel Brooks kept trying to top himself, well, what can I do wackier the next time?
Right.
You get to the point where you're starting to put up movies like Dracula, Dead and Loving It, or what was the Robin Hood one? It was Men in Tights.
Yeah.
It's funny in places, but all of a sudden you look back, it doesn't hold. After 10, 15 years,
I
you're
was
like,
say the staying power of
it just
any
doesn't
of them
feel
is
funny.
nothing compared to what Young Frankenstein
no,
is.
not at all. What do you think, Pete?
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely.
So, Pete, when you look at Gene Wilder, which movies do you... I mean, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, you said at the beginning of the week you were going to hold your opinion because you didn't think about it, which is his best role.
Yeah, what is his best role?
Have you thought about it? You had a whole week.
I think Stir Crazy for me.
Stir Crazy.
Yeah, I think just the interplay between Gene and Richard Pryor is, I think, the best I've ever seen him.
I can't disagree. It's certainly up there among some of the best performances and some of the ones most people remember. Stir Crazy, Silver Streak. For me, I'm going to have to go back to my fallback. I still think his command of the character of Willy Wonka is Academy Award. It's an Academy Award winning performance that he was overlooked. He should have gotten at least a nod for that role with what he brought to that character.
Well, I think I have said over and over again, and I think, Alan, you have said over and over again, that we'll start talking about a Gene Wilder movie, and every single time we talk about how it's underappreciated, and that, you know, Gene Wilder's work, I think, is just, it does not get the recognition that it should get up against some of the other great comedians and writers and directors.
No, part of it is he started becoming known in the 70s, early 70s, and kind of disappeared, at least from the film side, in the mid-90s, and then he made some television appearances, but then decided he didn't like where Hollywood was going and decided, I'm going to write some books, I'm going to stay at home with my wife, I'm going to enjoy the twilight of my life, and hey, you know what, in some respects, I can't disagree with a guy who got to call the shots the way he wanted to late in life. I want to be in that position.
Yeah, I hope to be there someday.
I hope to be. One day. Pete, any final thoughts?
No, thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun this week.
Well, thank you for taking time with us out of your busy schedule. We know The Last Crusade, you're talking about searching for relics and artifacts and trying to figure out which coast you're on in terms of which college you're in. Is it Marshall College or where we are? And it's all messed up. And but you guys have another franchise, or not another franchise, another part of the franchise you'll be diving into soon. So if folks want to binge listen right now and get all set, because Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is their absolute favorite Indiana Jones movie, how do they go get all caught up so they'll be ready for it when you guys start season 4?
Well, you pretty much go to any podcast player, wherever you find The Wilder Ride, and just type in Indiana Jones Minute, and you will find us.
And folks, it is well worth listening to. The guests are great, but the banter between these three guys, I asked Tom this when we had Tom Taylor on, who is with you guys. I'm going to ask you the same thing. I know Tom and Jerry grew up as friends. You didn't meet Jerry until, I think, college and became friends. how did all three of you decide that you would all mesh together? Like, how did it, what led to you guys deciding the three of us together, sitting in separate studios across the internet, can come together and do this Indiana Jones podcast?
I think it was because Tom and I were both really good friends with Jerry, but we didn't know each other terribly well. And we knew each other sort of in passing. But both Tom and I listened to the Star Wars Minute, like very regularly, and we would chat about that sometimes. And I think that was the catalyst for us. It was like, you know what? I think we could do this. This would be fun.
So you had sort of instant messenger conversations or Twitter conversations or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just chat, Facebook Messenger or whatever. And we kind of all came up with the idea about the same time that maybe we should give it a go ourselves, and have regretted every minute of it.
What's that smell? It's the smell of regret and disappointment. Well, I will tell you, it has been highly entertaining, and I am late to coming to the Movies by Minutes podcast. I know a lot of people are maybe even stumbling on it right now. I got pulled in thanks to a buddy of mine doing The Thing Minute because he is a huge horror fan and did John Carpenter's The Thing, which I love that movie, and it still holds up today. The practical effects are just unbelievably good. And once I started getting on the show as a guest, I started thinking to myself, is this something I want to try? And thankfully, it took about 6 months before I finally realized my lapse into stupidity got the better of me, and I said, let's do it. So here we are doing our Wilder ride.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, hopefully you guys are still having fun.
You know what? We are. There is that sense of work at times, and then there's that ominous sense of the episodes that I've completed and have finished editing. That pool of that buffer is rapidly shrinking, and I'm hoping I've got it timed that the end of the movie comes just as I finish editing the last episode.
Well, we're close. We've got 11 episodes left.
And I've got about 30 to edit.
Yeah.
Walt, if somebody wants to binge listen season 1, and who knows where they're stumbling upon us, but if they want to get back and say, oh, okay, I know everything about Young Frankenstein. Oh, yeah? We dare you to go listen. Where can they go?
There are many places you can go. Any of the main podcatchers on iTunes or Stitcher, iHeartRadio, we're out there. But to make it easy on you, just go to thewilderride.com and you can find all of our episodes posted there and start from the beginning, start from 22 or wherever you want to start and start listening. And you're going to find some stuff that you may or may not believe, you may or may not have heard before, but you're going to be entertained.
Absolutely. And if you're a fan of Indiana Jones, go back and listen to the Minutes with Tom Taylor. We had some great discussion about post-animation. Well, not post-animation, post-process of hoping to reanimate the monster. And of course, this whole week with Pete Mummert has been fantastic as well. We want everyone to come back next week, Monday. Come on back because we're going to continue. Elizabeth is now going to realize that the monster's attention is suddenly brought somewhere else. That maybe they're not going to get a 7th time, which is always her favorite, or is a magic number for her. And we're going to end with Dr. Frankenstein playing violin on the rooftop of his castle. So all of that is coming next week on this, The Wilder Ride.
I wish I could shush everybody with a rigid wrong hand like Inspector Kemp at this point, but it just doesn't come out the same.
Isn't it amazing how he can shush with the wrong hand?
It is. It's amazing.
Like he's a first half-ass transformer. He had to put it together himself.
Yeah. Okay. And then rank it with the darts.